the legislative service legislator.
Probably.
Your seat, two stakes.
Kathy promises to come.
Oh, God. I'd be very thankful I'm in here, not on the road surrounding.
I just want to make it go away. Oh, so I need to go back. I'm so sorry. Yeah, when you hit the window, I really. Ready to rock and roll? As soon as our council president says okay.
August the 5th, and Mayor Keith is traveling in transit, will participate in the meeting this evening that Council. I think you got everybody you're going to get.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Hello. It's good to see everyone again. For the record, my name is Emily Grimes. We're going to be doing a very high level review of what the city is and who you guys are to the city as the city council. And if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about public meetings. Excuse me. We'll probably limit just that. A training that you all have probably had at least once in your lives before this. So nothing earth shattering, no big changes in the law or anything like that. But as questions come up, please feel free to interrupt and we can talk about it. Okay, form of government, here we go. So starting from the tippity top, a long time ago, well, 100-ish years ago, it used to be that if someone wanted to make a city, they used to have to go to the legislature and say, please, legislature, would you make a city? Would you define the city's jurisdiction physically, geographically, would you create a equivalent to a charter, and would you expressly delineate bit by bit every bit of authority that a city has to act? Because if you don't specifically say every bit of authority, then the city will not have that bit of authority. And the voters eventually realized that that's a really cumbersome way of creating cities, especially when it's the early 1900s and populations are increasing and we need to make more cities to do more things. So 1906, there were 2 amendments to the Oregon Constitution to allow the voters, not the legislature, to incorporate cities and to adopt their charters and to give the cities authority once, we have a governing body established for the city to pass local laws and do everything equal for public health, safety, and welfare. And so we switched from that legislature-driven model to a model called home rule authority, which I believe these days is the most common way across the entire country, though there are still, I think, some holdouts here and there. And the nice thing about the home rule authority is not only do the voters get to do this, not the legislature, but the paradigm shifted from what used to be each power had to be expressly spelled out in order for a city to have it, now is flipped on its head. And it assumes that every single power that a city could possibly have is automatically given to a city. And the areas where you don't have authority is where there's state law or federal law that would preempt the city from enacting its own laws. And we can get a little bit into preemption if you have questions, but suffice it to say, criminal laws are a big area of preemption. And then any state or federal law that specifically says that it preempts any other local law are areas that you're going to be preempted in. So that happened, which is good news. So following that home rule authority framework, the voters did Fairview and adopted the Fairview Charter, which you can think of as your version of a constitution. It is Fairview's foundational document that does a lot of important things. First and foremost, it establishes the form of government to govern Fairview. And spoilers here, it establishes the city council form of government. So creates the council, creates all of your positions, delegates all authority that a city could possibly have to the council. And then also, oh man, I missed my lead in. To the council, there we go. As a body, not as individuals, and you know that, you as individual councilors don't have authority, but as a body, as one voice of a majority of a quorum, you do have authority to adopt laws, establish policy, to lead the city in those areas. Charter also then delegates some of that authority to the city manager position. So not the policy-making side, that's reserved for the council, but the administrative stuff. So I'm turning to your charter now. Section 4, powers of the city, makes it pretty clear here. City has all powers that the Constitution, statutes, and common law of the United States and of this state now or hereafter expressly or impliedly grant or allow the city as fully as though this charter specifically enumerated each of those powers. That's really great catch-all language. I don't think that leaves anything out. Further on into your charter, it's section 23, creates the city manager position and grants to the city manager, there we go, the role of the administrative head of the city. So you as the council appoint and remove the city manager position. So that's where your role is in managing the administrative affairs of the city. You get to manage the person who's in charge of that. And then everything else falls under the city manager position. And subsection D of section 23 lists quite the list of things that Port Ethan is in charge of. Attend all council meetings unless excused otherwise. Reports or recommendations to the council. Administer and enforce all the ordinances, resolutions, franchises, leases, contracts, permits, and all of the decisions the council makes. So you make policy, he is the implementing and enforcing arm of that policy. Organizes your department's administrative structure. Appoints, supervises, and removes city employees. That one's big. All employment of positions other than the city manager position flow through your city manager. Administers utilities and properties, encourages and supports regional intergovernmental cooperation, promotes cooperation amongst council, staff, and citizens in building policies and developing a sense of community, and of course, any other duties as directed by the council. So Nathan's here to be your arm in implementing the policy that you form. The charter also has nice language to keep a little bit of a political block between the council and the city manager position. So the charter requires you to appoint individuals to this position without regard to politics. And it also has language that serves to prevent council members from indirectly or directly attempting to coerce the city manager or candidate in the appointment or removal of any city employee or in administrative decisions, and so on from there. So the charter wants to keep that line clear. Council, policymakers, you manage and appoint the city manager goes forth and does your bidding as you've enacted via policy and laws and that sort of thing. And I will say this is a very common form of government. It is the most common form of government in Oregon. I think Portland is the only example that comes to mind where members of the governing body were actually involved into the day-to-day administration of bureaus. But I think that recently changed. Is that right? Yes. Okay.
City administrator now.
Okay.
Similar, but a little different.
How recent was that?
2 years ago.
Okay. Do you know how it's going?
I've met
Really bad.
Really? Okay.
I don't know, the city's probably doing fine, but the council is very entertaining.
Okay. They're struggling with the paradigm shift.
Mayor is daddy, so, yeah.
That is something that if I were their counsel, I would refer them to their council rules to see if that is an appropriate form of address. Thankfully, I'm not Portland's counsel.
I have met the city administrator. He seems to be a pretty solid person.
Good, good. Yeah, I mean, big city, always going to have challenges. Okay, we're talking about your city manager, and now we are talking about what does your charter require your city council to do? So, govern the city. More specifically, adopt rules to govern how you govern the city. And that requirement is also echoed in your city code. Chapter 2 of your city code handles all of these like administrative form of government things. And it is, you can think of it as flowing from the charter, always has to be compliant with and consistent with the charter, but goes and fills in the blanks in the outline that the charter then creates. So chapter 2.10 is your city manager code provision, for example, and yours is 2.05. Okay, so your council rules you most recently adopted in 2022 sets rules for all those topics. How your council meetings are going to be run. When are they? How can you convene them? Who has authority to put things on the agenda? Minutes, which is great, also a state law thing. Order of business, it's very important to have a orderly meeting. Otherwise, how are you going to get the city's business done? How to conduct hearings, which is important, especially in a land use context where there's a lot of state law overlay. Ethics, very important. There are a lot of state law things in there as well. Communications with staff. All of this is very important. I keep saying that. Legal advice and appointments. So these rules are intended to cover how you operate within your scope of authority as a city council, as bestowed upon you through the charter. And I like your council rules. I've read them a few times now. I would say that council rules should be thought of as a living document. So everyone, of course, should understand them and what's in them, but everyone should be evaluating them too. How is it working? How is it not working? Areas of improvement, that sort of thing. So I don't know if you guys have a standing agenda item every year or so to take a gander at your council rules, but if you don't, it might be worth something thinking about every couple of years, perhaps, see what's going well. But following the chain through of the city council on the policy side, city manager on the administrative side, your communications with staff section, which is Rule 10 of your council rules, flushes that out a little bit more and establishes a list of rules that are expressly intended to help both sides comply with that line. So the rule begins with council will respect the separation between policy making, which is a council function, those are parentheses, administration, city manager function by list of rules. So non-interfering with day-to-day business, of course, refraining from actions that would undermine the city manager's authority vis-a-vis the employees that he supervises, so department heads all the way down. and also the public and contractors and other folks that the city manager needs to work with in order to be your implementation arm of your policy. Working with staff as a team in a spirit of mutual respect and support. It definitely goes without saying that everyone's jobs are easier if we all get along. Echoes also that prohibition on influencing both city manager position and other employees and on from there. I like also your ethics code section, which is Rule 9 in your council rules. It doesn't, regurgitate state law because that would be a lot of words, but it reflects state law. It says everyone has to comply with state ethics law, and then goes into a few examples that I think are, maybe when they were drafted were areas of like particular concern or something, or were things that happened in the past that needed to be specifically called out. For example, disclosing confidential information or making use of special knowledge that isn't open to the public. Requesting preferential treatment for themselves, friends, associates, clients, acting on behalf of special interest groups, seeking employment of relatives with the city. That one's a pretty clear ethical issue under both state law and these rules. So everything in this document is worth a look to see how it's working for the council. But those are areas I think that are particularly worth looking at. And on the ethics side, I will just add here that OGAC has a required training for public meetings. And I don't know if the ethics side of things is required, but it's always a good thing to do. An OGAC ethics training is just a reminder. You all may have heard that OGAC is doing some novel interpretations of existing law these days. And one would hope that their most recent trainings on those laws would reflect their most recent interpretations of those laws. One cannot always be sure, but that's always a great resource to go check out and make sure that we're all on the right side of the law. It is distressingly easy to lose sight of the parameters of the law and inadvertently step into areas where you're not supposed to be. Okay. Questions on council rules? We'll keep us moving on. Oh, there's another slide with everything you just saw on it. Do you want to hear all that again?
No.
So we continue on. Okay, great. Okay, council citizen advisory commissions, / committees, CCACs. Okay, so CCACs are a creature of your municipal code. So they are generally established, the concept is generally established in chapter 2.14 of your code. And then a couple additional sections of chapter 2 establish a couple of committees by name. I think it's the Public Safety Advisory Committee and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. But chapter 2.14 is neat in that its underlying purpose recognizes that council does its job best when it is advised by members of the public in specific areas of like particular public concern, public safety, for example, parks and recreation opportunities within the city. And then sets up a structure where council can create by ordinance committees to advise council on those areas. And I like how this chapter is set up because it very clearly goes through, here's what we need for members of the public, here's why it's helpful for us, and here's how we're going to go about and get the most help that we can from members of the public. For example, in 2.14030, these advisory committees or commissions have to have a underlying statement of purpose when they are being formed. So via ordinance, that ordinance should have that underlying statement of purpose, kind of define their scope of work if you're thinking of it in contract terms, or their job duties if you're thinking of it in employment terms. And that's a document or a statement that is supposed to be reviewed periodically by the council. And then in at least yearly, it looks like, annual meetings with the committees, between the committees and council to make sure that the work for the coming year done by those commissions or committees falls in line with those underlying purposes. I think that's great. Kind of the first time I've seen that spelled out as specifically as your code does, but I think that's a good idea. Your committees are subject to your council rules. So everything in your council rules document about the conduct of meetings, ethics, all that stuff applies to your committees as well. That's in chapter 2.14. And then, of course, members of the committees are appointed and removed by a majority vote of the council, except that the mayor can unilaterally appoint and remove council liaisons to those committees. So liaisons have a pretty defined role. They're primarily a resource to the members of the committees. So they are a line of communication between the committees and the council. And I think in your code, it pretty expressly gives examples of, for example, the council liaison should keep the committee apprised of agenda items coming before the council that might be of interest and that sort of thing. On the flip side, the liaison is not a member of the committee itself. So it's that position, it's not within that position's role to partake in discussions at the table with the committee, debate, lobby, or otherwise influence the committee, and definitely does not have a vote for the committee. Okay, cool. Public meetings. Wow, we are moving really fast through these. Actually, I'll just pause there to see if there are questions or anything that anyone wants to talk about first.
Doesn't look like it.
Seeing none, moving along. Or actually, Nathan, was there anything that you wanted me to hit on in there that I didn't hit on?
No,
Okay,
thank you.
yeah. Real quick, public meetings spiel. So as you well know, as members of a governing body, any convening of a quorum of the governing body has to be done in public. A convening of a quorum where you are convening to deliberate and decide on matters that are within your jurisdiction as a city council to decide upon. Our public meetings laws came out of the 1970s. I think it was a direct reaction to the Watergate issues experienced at that time. So yeah, Oregon takes public meetings very seriously. And of course, it's, companion in all of this are public records. Same sort of transparency policy there. But we won't get in public records today. Yep, so anything that is a meeting has to be done in public with the opportunity for members of the public to attend. The traditional manner of attendance is folks get to show up in person. Nowadays, we have things like Zoom and Teams and lots of options to open up meetings to other forms of attendance. So the law has evolved to require that if you're holding a meeting remotely, you have to provide the opportunity, well, you always have to provide the opportunity for someone to telephonically attend some way or another via a Zoom link, or you're streaming to YouTube, or, wow, I don't know if anyone does this, but like conference call-in numbers, for example. Like you have a conference phone in the middle of the table and a number for someone to call into that. And the funny thing is, if everyone here was to attend the meeting remotely, so we're all sitting on Zoom together, you still would have to have a physical place for members of the public to show up to watch a stream of that remote meeting happening. And the flip side is, if you have to meet in public, you may not meet in private. The law establishes some requirements for holding a public meeting. There has to be notice given within the appropriate period of time, depending on what kind of public meeting it is. If it's an emergency meeting, then you can get by with less notice. But if it's a regular meeting or a special meeting, you got to give more. Notice has to contain information about, the primary items to be considered at the meeting. Doesn't have to include a recitation of everything that might happen at the meeting. It is still possible to walk things on at a meeting, but it should include the primary items you're anticipating discussing. Has to be held in a location that is accessible to the public, and both people can show up, and also ADA considerations. It has to be held within the jurisdiction of the city, unless something happens and it cannot be, and then you have to put it somewhere that's close enough to the city. All votes have to be made so that the vote of every single member of council is recorded in minutes, which can either be written or just an audio or video recording, but they have to be done transparently. And then I like this public attendance, but not always participation. So the public has the right to attend. Outside of specific circumstances under state law, they do not have the right to participate. So there's no standing obligation to take public comment. There's no obligation to interact with members of the audience. That changes in, for example, land use hearings. You have to, allow testimony. And maybe one or two other, if you're adopting a new fee or if you're increasing a fee, for example.
Budget hearings,
What was that?
budget as well.
Budget, yep, that's a big one. There's our definition, which we already talked about. Yeah, so what is a public meeting not? So less than a quorum of a governing body is not a meeting. So you are 7, so your quorum is 4. Is my math right there? Yep, so if 3 of you get together, that is not a meeting.
We have to.
A meeting is also not gatherings purely for social matters, where you're not going to be deliberating or discussing upon matters that fall within your jurisdiction to make decisions on. Slippery slope though, because if you're all at a barbecue, the urge to talk shop might come up, and then it's possible to convert a non-public meeting gathering into a public meeting if you aren't careful about that line there. Situations where a quorum gets together to discuss simply logistical matters like, hey, are we all available at 5 p.m. next week to do a special meeting? If the conversation stays there, that's not a public meeting, not subject to any of the notice and other legal requirements. But again, you got to think about scope creep. If you talk about more, it's possible to convert that into a public meeting. Yeah, so here's our serial meeting rule. So you can convene a public meeting, and you guys have all heard this before, but you can convene a public meeting even if you are not all gathered together physically or electronically via Zoom. It's possible to inadvertently convene a public meeting if some sort of communication, so an email, gets sent around to a quorum. It's possible to convene a public meeting if someone acts as a middleman messenger and carries messages to enough people to constitute a quorum. That's a really tricky area. There are 1,000 hypotheticals that unfortunately you're in the position of potentially experiencing every single day. Best rule is to not hit reply all on emails. When sending emails to a quorum or more, BCC everyone, which is when I email you guys, it says to Emily from Emily, y'all are BCC'd on that, so you don't have the option. Yep, so the best practices for sure, just to keep you out of hot water. But this is an area of law that has been, was pretty hot in this past legislative session and will continue to be for future ones. They are actively looking at revisions to this law to make its intent more clear, because right now, under the current interpretation and language, it would be possible to entrap someone in a public meeting. So you're carrying messages, hypothetically, you're carrying messages between council members. They don't know that you're doing it. You never told them. They have no reason to know. There's no way for them to know. You do it to at least a quorum. Everyone here is now entrapped into a public meetings law violation. That's a very silly result of this law. So things like that are still in flux. So keep your eyes out for changes. Love it when that happens. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple more of our exclusions. Yep, there's the careful about your social settings, no talking shop. So the public meetings enforcement process has changed in recent history. So no longer can folks submit an allegation of a violation of public meetings law straightly to OGEC. They have to go through what was called a grievance process with the council first. So someone believes that you violated public meetings law, they have to submit a written grievance to council within 30 days of the occurrence. the written grievance has to establish, set out certain information. And then council has 21 days to respond from there. And your 3 options for response are listed right there. Denying the facts, admitting to the facts, but saying, even though these facts are true, they don't amount to a violation. Admitting to the violation and addressing how you will cure the violation. And OGAC becomes involved if the complainant is not happy with your response, if your response was one of the 2 deny options. OGAC does have the ability to impose fines for public meetings violations. Typically, they do not impose hefty fines. Thankfully, they treat these as opportunities for education first, and it is possible to come to some sort of settlement agreement with OGAC wherein someone found in violation would pay like 50 or $100 and then get a letter essentially placed in their file. And then all the OGAC decisions are publicly available on their website. So it's kind of fun to peruse them sometimes. I don't know if it'd be fun for you guys, but it's fun for us to keep an eye on. It's also interesting to watch OGAC's meetings. So OGAC is governed by a commission of 9 members, I think it is. Most of them are attorneys, so it's like really fun stuff to watch. And, just like you guys, they're subject to public meetings laws, so they have to post their packet, and their packet has to have an agenda. So you can see for every meeting, they have a laundry list of violations to get through where they assess some sort of penalty. So that's a fun way to check out who's unfortunately in front of OGAC this time around.
Your definition of fun.
I was going to say,
Sure.
I'm sure.
Sounds like something Paul would be more interested in.
I subscribe to their channel.
There you go, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So I know that we're pretty good about it as a council as far as, we'll text each other now and again, but we don't really discuss matters of the meetings.
Yeah.
Or like keeping each other updated if something happens around the city or whatever. But let's say hypothetically, someone was to request text message records, which I think recently happened in Portland. How does that work? If somebody says, I think they were discussing public matters on their personal phones, I want the records, what happens then? How does that process work?
That's a public records question that we're not doing. I'm kidding. So I've actually had this happen to one of my clients in recent history. So the law is fresh in my mind on this one. What happens is that it becomes an administrative nightmare. So the rule is that every public body, entity, so the city, for example, Portland, a county, a special district, the state itself, and all of its subsidiaries, has to retain public records in accordance with the Secretary of State's retention schedule. And if they have a public record, they are considered to be a custodian of that public record. That's the trigger word for this, custodian. And so if they get a records request for a public record that meets the definition of public record for which they are the custodian, then they have to hand over that record unless an exemption applies. So assuming no exemption applies in this place, each member of a governing body is considered to be, for the purposes of this records law, a custodian of records in their position. So if the city gets a records request for the text messages you just described, city's not the custodian, but you are the custodian, and whoever the other counselors on the other side of the communication are also the custodians too. So each of you are individually responsible for complying with the public records law and producing responsive records to a member of the public, not the city, all of you individually. What generally happens though is city gets a public records request for counselor text messages, and city goes, hey, we got this request in, here's the law, you technically are responsible for responding to it, but we'll do it on your behalf. You just have to perform a search, because that's the second part. Once you get a records request, you're legally obligated to perform a search for responsive records. Perform the search, confirm to us, the city, that you have performed a search for any responsive records in your possession. If you found anything, give them to us so that we can then disclose it to the requester.
So it's up to me to provide the text messages based on my own findings?
Yep, so you have to do the search and you have to disclose what you have searched. The way around you having to do that is if you have any public records in your possession that is not also in the city's possession, like a packet, for example, that you have also in the city's possession, so that wouldn't apply. But anything that you have that isn't in the city's possession, screenshot it, copy it, send it over to Beverly, yep. So she can hold it, so that when such a request comes down the pike, city can handle it and wouldn't have to talk to you about searching your personal cell phone for public records. Also, a reason why, best advice is to not use personal devices for communications that may generate a public record. I'm guilty of that. I use my personal cell phone, unfortunately, but I take a bunch of screenshots and I email them to myself all the time. Also, I don't know if you guys do this, but some cities give like iPads to their counselors so that they can take notes or whatever. Because if you take notes up on the podium, the dais or dais? Are you a dais? Okay, we won't get into that. Take notes up there on like a council packet, but the council packet itself is a public record. You have changed it by putting notes on it. So now that note written one is now its own public record too. So hand it into Deborah at the end of the day. Yeah.
Exactly why the information submitted in the last public meeting are now in the minutes. Public record.
Oh, right, the images, yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I could see it, obviously, if there's nothing to hide, then it's just kind of a nuisance at that point. But also on the flip side of that coin, one who maybe does have some information on their phone to hide could simply just say, no, nothing there. Yeah. Right?
And then the potential liability from that is the requester goes, I don't believe you. And then they have to, that's not a petition to the DA for review. That's going and filing in circuit court, which I have seen happen. Yes, I have seen it happen once, and litigation is currently ongoing and it's messy. But I don't know how widespread that is. But these sorts of requests for this type of communication amongst counselors or from counselors, I don't think they happen that often, but they generally happen because someone has gotten a sniff of something and, it's adjacent to some sort of litigation. It's like, someone's going to get sued shortly, but hasn't been yet. So there's no discovery request, but we're going to use the public records process as a precursor to that sort of thing. So it is definitely an area to be careful about.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I add something and you can correct me if
sure,
I'm
yeah.
wrong, but it could get to the point where if the judge, the DA allows it, or you get personally sued, you could have your phone confiscated. Is that not correct?
I mean, yeah,
Potentially.
hand your phone over to a tech guy to download its contents.
And that was kind of what I assumed would be the process.
You could do that if the city, all the way back to your original question,
Yeah.
if the city says, we got a request for these records, give us your phone and we'll search for them for you, or you can do it yourself. Either way. I mean, it's never fun to be in possessions in someone's personal phone and doing a dive,
That's why I have a separate phone.
Yeah. Why is,
Everything's separate. I don't do any work on personals.
yeah. Does that cover it?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
thank you.
Yep, so violate public meeting law, you also face some penalty in civil, or some, liability exposure in civil court as well. Executive sessions, and a topic you know well, so certain public meetings are exempt from the rule that they have to be conducted in public, but because that is such a transgression of the underlying policy for public meetings, the list of reasons why you can go into executive session is very small and it's comprehensive. So the only ways to go into executive session are in 192-660 sub 2A through H, perhaps. So that's what, 9? And the other strictures, you can't make final decisions, so you can come to consensus on an action, but the decision itself, you need to go back into open session and do via motion or however you would normally make the decision. Yeah, confirms consensus reached in executive session. News is going to talk about news media.
May I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, I've worked in 7 states, and I've never seen any state that allows a news media into executive session.
Yeah, so that's actually a bummer. So there are only 2 exceptions to the rule that members of the representatives of news media organizations can attend executive sessions. One of them, I think, is labor deliberations, and as a labor attorney, I should know that better. The other one might be real estate transactions too, but don't quote me on that. But I do know that there's only 2. And surprise, surprise, going into executive session to discuss pending or current litigation is not one of those, unless the news media is party to that litigation. News media should not be reporting on what happens in the executive session, but there's really no teeth to that rule. So if a news reporter walks out and immediately posts a story about everything that you guys just said, that's a violation of the rule, but there's no way to enforce it against them. You can't, including banning them from future executive sessions, can't do that. These days, the issue is quickly becoming who is a member of the news media. Is, obviously the Oregonian reporters, easily determined. But the guy that posts on Facebook, what's your community Facebook page called? Every city has one, not run by the city, but like the.
The only one that I ever even scroll at is WTF Wood Village Fairview.
Right. So the guy.
That's usually, my neighbor's setting off fireworks or whatever, but I stay the hell off of next door.
Yeah.
Down for Wood Village,
Smart.
Troutdale, and Fairview.
What's TF?
Oh,
WTF.
I never thought about that.
Oh, that's clever.
I never thought of that either. That is not what it stands for.
Yeah.
So your most prolific poster in those groups, is that a member of the news media?
So it should just be WTF.
Yeah, there you go. Start a new page.
Should seek to become one of the administrators of such groups, just for that
Right.
page. Yeah, so that's a dangerously evolving area. Law very slow to evolve, technology evolving much faster, unfortunately, and this is an area where we feel it. Yeah, that one's definitely, so when you go into executive session, everyone should know who everyone else in the room is, because if there's a member of the news media there, that's something we're probably not going to talk about everything that we were going to talk about. You may even just call it quits and not do the executive session whatsoever. But if you have folks attending remotely, make sure they identify themselves, make sure they confirm on the record that there is no one in earshot, they're not, someone isn't right here off camera listening to everything they say. Some cities have rules that there is no remote attendance for executive sessions. Everyone's got to be in person. Yeah, and it just, one little slip up can hurt a lot down the line from there. Yeah, violations specifically for executive sessions, same framework. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're not gonna do public records. So that's it. More hypotheticals, more questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So on the script, when we do them for executive sessions, which I got from the city attorney a long time ago.
Yeah.
We always make that comment about the media in the session, in the script. And it seems kind of silly sometimes because there's nobody there. So if there's nobody there, can he omit that piece in his script? Or should he say it just so it's on the record?
I would still just say it, so it's on the record. The risk of not saying that piece is perhaps they take it as permission to then report. Someone could join later, for example, and if that happens, you would want to say that.
And then the other question I was told in one of my trainings is that everybody, the people that are in an executive session if the media was there, I'm not saying that they were, but if you walk out of that executive session and you're like casually having a conversation out in the hallway, and you mention something, you lost the protection of the executive session and they can report on what you're discussing.
Maybe.
Okay.
So only council as a body has the ability to, I would argue in your defense that only council as a body has the ability to waive the executive session confidential umbrella over matters that were discussed in executive session.
Even if they are discussing it in public and are overheard.
Yes,
Okay.
but I don't know if I would win. You know, that's an argument that I would make in order to not let certain information onto the record in like an ensuing case, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, please be very careful about what you talk about, where, you know, walls have ears, all that sort of thing. Yeah. Other questions? Okay, thank you for your time and attention. You have regained 15 minutes of your life.
Mayor Kudrna, before we disconnect, I just wanted to verify that you didn't have any questions or comments.
No, I think, given the circumstances, I think we're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take 15 minutes and back together.
Back at 7.
Jim,
I believe so, yes. Them? Yeah. In fact, our, is coming from Metro East to test
David.
an option for our audio. That is true. His name is David, okay.
It's behind the wall, yeah.
Well, I think they're coming on a Friday, which is fine. They're gonna test.
Yes.
Test it and then.
Oh, yeah. It's gonna come back. It's gonna come back, okay. These are the stars.
Well, that's right.
Okay. Drop it in. The plan will be, we won't have to have these anymore. Our audio feed will also come through Metro East, or what they're doing, which is always much clearer and.
No, I'm just wondering, there has to be a conduit under this floor between. The cable.
Oh, well, these are supposed to be able to be moved around. That's why they're not hardwired in. But if we find a solution
that we don't have to do these anymore, then. And better audio. Well, now it's working. It wasn't waking up before. And I didn't want to miss all that wonderful information that our city attorney was giving us. You're right, though. It's, public meeting law, I think is what it's called.
Where I read it, but somebody after, part about, well, you did this, but you only had 4 votes, and 4 votes isn't enough. Oh, and I don't even remember what the context was.
They're gonna be a.
I do remember it had something to do with shrooms, psychosocial and whatever.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, you have to have this training in order to get the license to be able to administer it, but it was just really sitting here going, they did try mushrooms, do it the way my dad did 60 years ago. I am on the corner and take them.
As God intended, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So,
it's just more regulatory capture.
so yeah, there was, really, why am I reading this?
Once the admin is in there, it's.
Some people like rules for rules' sake. Some people like rules for the sake of having rules, you know?
They use that word traffic police, so it's.
I just want to move someplace where there's just smart people, but I decided this would be a first.
I moved over.
It's really boring.
That's fine.
I didn't want to be all alone.
I don't blame you.
Don't leave me all
You're
alone.
bailing.
Good
When
what?
you like me more than you like her.
That's what it is, yeah. Tired of sitting by Deborah. Sit by Jeff.
How's everything? All right, how are you? I keep saying I haven't killed anybody yet, so.
But the day's not over.
Not over Zoom, right?
Probably.
I think so, yeah. And Baker. Yes, yeah. Okay, well, nice to meet you in person.
It's been a whirlwind over the last,
I
don't know, many months I've been here.
yeah, evidence of the whirlwind right there. Yeah, I'm sure it has been.
Like clear from the last discussion.
It's like, today I should not have worn a dress.
Spend thrift, finance thrift.
The hotter is it outside, the colder we get inside.
$251 a report. I'm about ready.
Oh, brutal right now.
The devil wants to be trying to take over. It's trying to.
Tonight.
Well, windows are okay. But.
Yeah. No.
No, well,
Can't do
no,
it.
no.
There's.
They do, I mean, upstairs, it's.
Jeez. Ugh. That's brutal.
This time.
One that starts with
They have these murders that are wired.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, you bought a new?
What is?
I mean, those things are expensive. You're shelling out the money, you want to make sure it's the right one.
Now Amy's like.
In the United States, the pay actually, the radio portion of it.
Yeah, we put them in, we have central, air, we don't love it, we put them into the bedrooms.
Okay. So like, we can quite honestly, pay. There are some airports.
You might, I think it's really good reading.
Their three-letter designation is different.
That's the thing is.
I don't like the people on the wall.
There is a thing on the wall. It's a very noticeable thing on the wall.
I had those in Pennsylvania.
Because there's somewhere like in the.
Ask Linda about when they, have issues, because she got,
Everybody else
I
is
think she
something else.
finally got it resolved, but it kept, come home and water.
Right.
Water was coming out of it, yeah. They actually find because her mini split system, I think, is heat and AC.
Yes, yeah. They can, some of them, yeah, they can do both.
This is the one I bought that has a heat pump in it too.
Wow.
But the issue I have is that Amy is a very sensitive sleeper. And so with the fan, she just can't.
The noise.
Oh, see,
Yeah.
I get to a point where I love the white noise.
Yes.
Well.
And not at first, but.
We have friends.
And that's.
Okay, we will call the regular session of the Fairview City Council of Wednesday, August 5th, 2026 to order. Roll call, please.
Counselor Copeland,
Here.
Counselor Dennerlein,
Present.
Counselor Weber, she's here. Oh, there you, I couldn't see you. And Council President Owen.
Here. And yes, from what I understand, and I was reading this and not listening to you, I apologize for that. So Mayor Keith, is he on the line?
He has not rejoined. I'll keep watching and apparently he disconnected.
So at this point, he has not rejoined. And Counselor Todd and Counselor Marker are not here this evening and they are excused.
There he is.
Now, Mayor Keith?
Yeah.
There he is, okay. Let the record show that the mayor is present. The next item is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item on the agenda this evening is citizen comment on agenda items. And I have a request here from Marsh Santoro. Santoro, if you'd like to come forward and state your name and address, please.
Good afternoon, my name is Marcia Santoro, 305 Southeast, live at 305 7th Street, apartment 117 at Fairview Arms Apartments in Fairview, Oregon, 97024.
Perfect. And if you wouldn't mind maybe pulling the microphone just a little closer to you. Perfect. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members, and Mr. Mayor. I have always put my best foot forward, done the best job possible, and done the best job possible. And I'm the first to volunteer for anything and everything. I have always stated myself as a bit rude, loud, and obnoxious, and abrasive. That's me. And if you don't like that, then you don't like me. I have done anything and everything asked of me to the best of my ability, and will continue to do so for the betterment of Fairview. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other citizen comments? Okay, next item on the agenda is a presentation, Multnomah County Homeless Service Department, annual per gal. Perfect. Thank you.
Getting my name right, first try.
I'll have your presentation. It will, she shakes. Let's see if it's working. There you go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Nathaniel Real. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the new director of the Homeless Services Department for the County of Multnomah. I joined the county officially on May 1st. Remotely during the first month. Moved up from LA. The first month, my twins that are my youngest children were graduating high school that month, so I negotiated to work from home for the first month, but I've been up here since June 1st, which is the day after their 18th birthday. So, so this is my new home. This is a move that my wife and I have been planning for several years. Now that we are empty nesters, looking to get out of LA, which for me is a long but just a stopover in my life. I'm here tonight to give you an overview of the department, the services, and talk a little bit about the specifics that are available to the unhoused residents of Fairview. Really just my goal here is to have this be an open dialogue. I've already been meeting with Nathan. We have a meeting with leadership from the cities in the East County on a monthly basis, and we'll continue with that. Look forward to that relationship, and want there to be open dialogue between myself and the department and elected officials across the county. So not just the County Board of Commissioners, but yourselves and representatives from the other communities as well. So I'm hopeful that this can be the beginning of a conversation. So just briefly, just going to give a quick overview of the department, what we do, talk specifically about the services that are available to the residents of Fairview. We're going to go through some of the work of our department, specifically focusing on outreach, which is one of the primary resources that is provided directly here in the community, and then talk a little bit about where we are as a county, as a community, as a nation budgetarily, because there are a lot of challenges that we are facing. So diving right in. So just I trust you all to be able to read the mission statement on your own, but just the general overview is that we are the county department specifically focused on addressing homelessness. We have programs that focus on moving folks from unsheltered homelessness into permanent housing, and we work collaboratively with the other county departments, most specifically Department of County Human Services Department, that administers the prevention rental assistance programs, as well as our health department that does health and behavioral health programming, because the integration and intersection of those roles and those programs is essential. So, as I said, we are a county department, and I do want to stress that as such, we, unlike some departments, and the technical assistance to be providing the services effectively and efficiently. So we are that contracting entity, and one of my big areas of focus over the next couple of years, but especially a primary focus in the next year, is ensuring that we're building the connective tissue between different types of programs, so that it's not a set of independent programs that we hope folks will be able to navigate through, but there are very clear pathways and connections between programs, so that the pathway from unsheltered homelessness to housing is clear both to participants as well as the general public. I did put on the slide just briefly what we don't do, because we are often asked about doing enforcement, and this is not a choice. We just are not, we are not authorized to do enforcement. So it's not a question of values or choice or any of the above. It's that literally we are not the entity that is authorized to do enforcement, whether it's around municipal codes, criminal activity, or other. And as I said, we also are not the direct service providers. So I think I'll start. This is a slide that gives a brief overview of the services. As I said, the primary service that is available directly here in your community is street outreach. The lead provider for services around outreach is an organization called Peer Company, but we also have contracts with IRCO and Cascadia to provide additional services in support of the work that Peer Company is doing. But in addition to that, there are services available to all county residents that are not necessarily centered here or cited here, but are available to the residents of Fairview. And that includes eviction prevention and legal assistance. Metro Public Defenders does have East County Clinic Days. The website for that information is on the slide. And as part of the continuum of services that we contract for, those are available to all unsheltered, all people experiencing homelessness across the county. So it doesn't matter whether you are living in the city of Portland, city of Gresham, city of Fairview, if it is funded by the county, and you are eligible for that service. So that includes shelters, that includes rapid rehousing, which is a program that provides a short-term rental assistance and services for folks to stabilize them back into housing. So that can be up to 24 months of assistance that is designed to help folks, again, stabilize and taper off of that assistance with case management to help them develop clear paths for employment and to increase their income so that they can take over market rate housing on their own at the end of that assistance, as well as what is known as permanent supportive housing, which is long-term rental assistance and wraparound services that can be either in a designated building or through vouchers that can be used in the private rental market. And all of those services, again, are accessible to unhoused residents of your city. So a quick focus on the work that we're doing relative to street outreach. We worked this year on a number of important pieces around outreach. One that is not listed on here, but is, I think, a really important bit of progress that we've made. We had a number of providers that were providing outreach with sort of different models. And so over the last year, we created a manual for all outreach providers that is intended to both through the training and contractually to standardize what outreach looks like, to make sure that whatever outreach team is encountering a person in an encampment, they're able to offer the same suite of services as every other outreach team. If they are not able to provide that service directly through their agency, that they're trained to be able to make connections to a program that can provide those services. So again, trying to standardize and ensure that there's comprehensive service across the county. We also work to divide the county into zones so that we have staff outreach teams that are defined, have defined geographic areas of focus so that we can, again, help to ensure that the areas of focus within those zones are covered. And we work with folks like Nathan and your city staff to learn about where encampments are, where there are encampments especially that are problematic for public safety, and so that we can ensure that outreach teams are getting to those folks. And the next step of that coordination around the zones is the development of, currently we have countywide regional coordination with our outreach providers, but we're adding a layer at the zone level so that there will be tighter coordination within the zones to make sure, again, that the outreach teams are getting the information about encampments that are on the radars for the jurisdictions, and that we are ensuring that there's touch across the entire county, not just in dedicated pockets. As I said, there are additional resources, IRCO, which is the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization, and Cascadia Health that provide, Cascadia is also a behavioral health provider, so they bring that expertise and access to resources. And through the budget process this year, the Board of Commissioners allocated additional money specifically for East County that has allowed Peer Company to add staff and increase their capacity here in East County. So quickly on to an overview of the budget challenges. So in this past year, going from fiscal year 26 into fiscal year 27 that just started last month, the department was hit with a 25% reduction in funding. It equated to about $67 million in decreased funding from last year to this year. That is primarily due to loss of one-time funding, much of it related back to COVID funding, ARPA funding, and other resources that were distributed from the federal government as part of COVID response, and those resources expired and or were fully used. And so we are now adjusting to what will be our new normal at this reduced level. That was also impacted by challenges at the county level in terms of the county's budget and resources available directly from the county. But we're also seeing challenges at the state and federal level with state budgets being stretched and change in focus and expanded focus in other areas beyond housing and homelessness that will put us in a position of competing with other social issues for our slice of the pie to be able to assist our unhoused neighbors. There's also a real significant uncertainty at the federal level, as I'm sure you're all aware, with the cuts to Medicaid and SNAP benefits. There are a lot of folks locally that will be placed who are living on the verge of homelessness because of economic reasons, who are going to be stretched farther to be able to maintain their housing. And I do expect that those challenges will eventually lead some folks to fall into homelessness. But beyond that, we rely heavily on funding from HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department of the federal government, through what is called the Continuum of Care. And at this point, because of the way there's an annual competition for resources across the country from Continuums of Care compete annually for this funding. In the way the Notice of Funding competition was structured this year, it is allowing HUD and the federal government much more subjective decision-making authority rather than objective authority, which is putting resources in communities like ours at significant risk. There was also a restructuring in terms of the overall priorities associated with that funding. So for the last 15 plus years, the HUD has been focused on prioritizing permanent housing and funding of permanent housing. In this newest Notice of Funding opportunity, there was a dramatic shift, and there's now a primary focus on shorter term interventions with a decreased emphasis on permanent housing, which means the vouchers that we've used to sustain households that are living with significant disabilities and really need that ongoing assistance, that funding is potentially in jeopardy. So we are, as you can see on the slide, it's roughly $25 million that we're concerned may get pulled in this current competition, which would be exceptionally detrimental. My challenge as the new director is to try to figure out how to do more with less. And so, as I said, my focus is really on within the department, ensuring that we are working as efficiently, as effectively as possible. And in terms of the overall system of services, a strong focus on building the connective tissue between programs so that we can move as many folks as quickly as possible through those programs into permanent housing so that we can serve more people with the same number of shelter beds as we have now. A couple of things that I did want to talk about in terms of progress that is being made. Again, I talked about our street outreach strategy already, but I also wanted to share that we are changing our vendor, HMIS, that capitalized acronym there stands for the Homelessness Management Information System. It is a federal requirement for all continuums of care to track in an HMIS system how services are provided, and that data is shared back to HUD to show how the work is being done and what progress is being made. We are right now in the process of transitioning from one HMIS vendor to another that will give us a significant increase in capacity and functionality, as well as a better user interface that will improve how data entry happens, and so that we will have better data getting entered into the system, as well as better tools to be able to use that data. Specifically, that includes a bed tracking system that will allow us to, in real time, be clear about where there are shelter beds available, help us to be able to set up a reservation system for beds so that we can ensure that no bed is going left unused across the county. There's also a significant improvement in functionality around outreach that will allow us to, there's a GIS, Geographic Information System, tracking tool built into the system that will allow us to track where services are happening and to be able to ensure that we are actually getting the breadth of coverage that our redesigned outreach strategy is designed to provide. So we'll be able to do that verification and see where services are provided, as well as be able to track data back to jurisdictions more effectively. Right now, there's a significant challenge in being able to tell you how many folks that were served in Fairview got into shelter, got into permanent housing, because our data system is just not sophisticated enough. But as we bring this new system online, so in about a year, we'll have significantly better access to data, which will help us in that use, in that desire to be more efficient and effective in how we do our programming. I believe that was my last slide. And so I'm more than willing to take questions. As I said, I do hope this is the beginning of a dialogue. Unlike some of my predecessors who have had fairly short tenures, I do plan to be here to do this work for the foreseeable future, ongoing.
Sure, I believe Councilor Weber has a question.
Yeah, I have a few, if that's okay.
Please.
As far as, where is the closest shelter to us in Fairview?
I'm the new guy, I'm going to plead ignorance. I actually don't know that. I can get that information for you. I really should have brought that. I apologize, but I can get that for you ASAP.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there was talk about one on Burnside, but that fell through. So just curious, where do we send people? So they can stay within their own community, but still get the services.
Yeah, I mean, there is not a shelter here in Fairview, that much I know. Which shelter is geographically closest to Fairview? I'm still learning the geography, but allow me to get back to you with that.
Okay, it would be great if there was one specifically in East County for the three cities and Gresham, because they do have kind of their own identity out here. They don't identify with Portland. They don't want to go past 181, 16.
Exactly the conversation I was having with Nathan and Sarah earlier.
Yeah. Okay, are there any supported housing developments in this part of East County?
Yes. Again, I will get back to you with the details. I do know that Home Forward has properties. I'm not clear whether any of the units within that are specifically designated as supportive housing, so I will get that.
Okay. And then I'm really excited to hear about your new data tracking. I think that's been a huge thing that's been missing for years, and as a result, homeless people with addictions and mental health have not been getting the services that they so desperately need and deserve. And part of that is because the funding has not been there, because we don't have the numbers. So I'm really glad to see that, but I'm wondering, is that going to be made available to the public to see that type of data that's being tracked?
So currently on our website, we do have data dashboards that show a fair amount of information, especially considering the database from which the information is being pulled and the challenges with that. We do have a good amount of information, including information about shelter resources, and I'll actually see what I can pull up in terms of getting you the location during this meeting as soon as I'm done sitting at the table here. But yes, with the new information system will allow us a lot more access to data that we then will be sharing publicly. My plan is to work with our providers initially on a strong focus of making sure that they are trained in doing strong data entry, and then work on that culture of strong data entry, really working to make sure that they are doing all of that tracking and showing them their data in real time through dashboards that they have access to. And once we've built a muscle around data, to make all of that, as much of that public as possible. I'm a strong believer in democratization of data, so.
And then as far as getting access to your services, how do they go about? Can they self-refer or are they referred from agencies?
No, there are options for self-referral. The easiest is going to be through Peer Company because they are here in your community on a regular basis. Nathan and Sarah and their team have that contact information and are regularly reaching out to Peer Company with information about where there are encampments and where there are individuals that have been flagged. Part of the meeting that we just had earlier is my commitment to working on improving communication structures between HSD and the city management so that we can have clear lines of communication and be getting, ensuring that the information is getting to Peer Company as well as tracked back to the city.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing your plans in action.
Me too.
Yeah, Councilor Copeland?
Yeah, I'm just curious, are there county shelters and private shelters? And do you guys refer to all or some, and how does that work?
So there are private organizations, primarily religious organizations, that do offer private shelters. We don't have contractual referral mechanisms, but generally they are open to referrals from outreach teams that we contract with. But in terms of the shelters that we operate, again, they are open to residents countywide. It depends on the population. We have shelters that are specifically for families or youth or single individuals. So we want to make sure that folks are getting referred to the appropriate shelter. But assuming, we're referring an individual to an individual shelter, it doesn't matter which corner of the county they're coming from.
Gotcha. And is that all public information if somebody was just to hop on Google to look for a shelter?
Yeah, it's on our website, the information, but again, I will hop on my laptop and pull it up and try to share that with you real time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I had just a few questions here. As related, and this I believe goes back to Councilor Weber's question. I was just asking about when are you anticipating bringing more housing online? I mean, I read periodically or hear about maybe like a hotel or a motel or something that is in the process of being converted to some type of housing. Do you have any information you can share tonight, or is that something that you just need to get back to us on?
So I can share that, a lot of those programs that you've seen news about are likely shelters, because that's primarily how the community has used hotels and motels as using them master leased as shelters. And given the reductions in funding this past year, we've had a significant reduction in the number of shelter beds that we can fund. So rather than bringing new shelters on, we've been forced to actually close down in excess of 800 shelter beds across the county. That is the scale of the budget decrease that we had coming into this fiscal year. There is, through the Supportive Housing Services tax that is administered through Metro, there is a pipeline of permanent supportive housing that is in development, and I believe, let's see if I have that. I tried to bring some information, not necessarily the right information. I will get you the pipeline number. I believe I don't want to say a number because there's too much of a chance I'd say the wrong number. But again, I will make sure to get those details.
And then do you have a feel for what, let's say, the occupancy rate is for the spaces that are available today?
So our shelters are generally operating around 90% occupancy, which is standard across the country in terms of it is considered strong occupancy, just because there is fairly regular turnover and there's a need to clean up spaces and as beds turn over. In terms of our permanent supportive housing, there are challenges across the portfolio of affordable housing, which is not all permanent supportive housing. And so I think that's an important piece of clarification. As I'm sure there, probably seen some stories recently around challenges that our affordable housing developers are having around vacancies and Home Forward specifically. That is primarily in the affordable housing portfolios, and there's different types of affordable housing. There's affordable housing that's designated as 60% area median income, meaning it's designed to be able to serve folks who are in that income bracket. And so the rents are, for a one bedroom, are almost on par with market rate, which makes it exceptionally challenging for these developers to fill those units. We have worked with developers with that rapid rehousing program that I talked about earlier. That has also created some challenges because not everybody is successful. And so when somebody is in that unit and they're not able to maintain that rent, those developers then are challenged with having tenants who can't support themselves. I will say, overall, with rapid rehousing, we see about an 85% success rate of folks being able to maintain their housing after the subsidy ends. But within that 15%, for any landlord, that is a challenge. But especially that 15%, the 60% AMI affordable housing, because it is so close to the market rate, is exceptionally challenging for developers to market and bring tenants in. The lower end of that spectrum in terms of rents is 30% AMI units. Those are have much higher occupancy, but there have been challenges in some developments, specifically around maintaining strong property management that impacts security and sense of safety, as well as the mechanisms for bringing in new tenants. And so that's been a community-wide struggle. That is something that I'm working with developers to try to address, because we have people who want and need access to those units. And so again, that's part of that connective tissue that I was talking about earlier that we need to make sure is built. And so wherever there's an appropriate linkage between our system and the developers, which, those are private entities largely, we want to be able to build those collaborative relationships because it benefits the entire community.
And I'm just curious, what is the head count in the department that you lead?
We are roughly 92.
Sorry, how many?
92.
92, and is that an increase or decrease?
No, that's it's a 16 or 17% decrease.
Okay. And then do you have so on the county, I guess the funding, the supportive housing tax? I think you said in your presentation there was a decrease of $21 million in the supportive housing tax, and then there's another $28 million of state funding. Was the $28 million of state funding, I mean, was that all going to Multnomah County, the $28 million? Or I'm just trying to say, is it $28 million just for the county, or is it $28 million across the state of Oregon?
If you ask me about budgets in LA, I could still tell you those all by heart.
Hey, don't worry about it. I for paper there.
Personally, I'm embarrassed that I haven't memorized all these details, but the supportive housing services tax, there was the tax collections were lower than the projections, which is the result, which is that $21 million variance. On the state, I will have to get back to you on. Okay. My understanding is that is the impact locally. But again, I don't want to speak out of turn.
And then this is something I find pretty fascinating, but I haven't found it fascinating enough to actually look into it lately or look real hard. But on the supportive housing, the $21 million, I mean, so what's your view, or maybe you've been in some meetings and they've said it, but I am interested in understanding, is the $21 million decrease, is it just people exiting the counties that would be required to pay the tax, or is it a problem collecting the tax? And do you have any feel for, I guess, what the lack of collections rate is as far as maybe delinquencies as to why we're not getting the $21 million bucks?
I have absolutely no information about delinquencies around the collection of the tax. That is, Metro is responsible for managing the collection of the tax and the distribution. I'm glad to ask them and see if I can get some clarity on that for you. The $21 million SHS it was an impact regionally, so it's not specifically just to Multnomah County. It is a regional tax, so it's County, Washington, Clackamas, and Multnomah, so that is across all collections. It was a $21 million decrease, and my understanding is it is directly relative to those who, it's not about delinquency or inability to collect the taxes, it is about the number of households that would be required to pay the tax and the businesses as well. So it's a change in the tax base as opposed to challenges on collection, from my understanding.
Yeah, that's all I had. Hey, Mayor Keith, did you have anything?
Actually, I appreciate the council's comments because you guys beat me to it. So between the questions that you've already answered and the information that you'll provide for us, I'm fairly satisfied at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming this evening. Definitely appreciate it, and looking for maybe some updates periodically from Nathan as it relates to your monthly meetings where you're getting together with other folks in the other communities to find out what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm more than willing to come back.
Appreciate that.
Please, through Nathan, feel free to let me know that you have questions about what's going on and would like an update, and I'd be glad to.
Okay, well, thanks again for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda this evening is to review and adopt the minutes of July 15th. Do we have a motion?
Move that we approve the minutes from the July 15th, 2026 meeting.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Next item is council business, authorizing the transfer of appropriations in the facilities fund for the City Hall roof project, which is resolution 29-2026.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Bethany Montgomery, Facilities Manager here for the city, and here with Silas Richardson, our Public Works Director. And I'd like to present the issue. We're looking at authorize the transfer of budget appropriations in the facilities fund for the replacement of the City Hall roof. So in fiscal year 2024-25, the Public Works Director had an inspection of the City Hall roof and was determined that it needed to be replaced. A quote was received at that time for future budget planning. In fiscal year 25-26, myself, the facilities manager, I did another inspection and updated the quote, additionally solicited 2 more quotes, and came to you all in March to present the bid of $98,500, which was approved. When the contract went out for the signature, the contractor actually did not sign. I determined that this number was actually an underbid number, and upon further investigation, the contractor was actually found not to be a good fit for the city, and I went out and solicited 3 more roofing bids. So if you remember from last time, the roofing material on the flat part of the roof, the TPO, that houses the HVAC units, it's in very poor condition. And the roof tiles on the sloping portion of the roof, they also need to be replaced. When we do the roof replacement, the tiles will be removed and the roofers will determine if there is any dry rot and replace the boards as needed. This installation is planned to coincide with the removal of the old HVAC units and installation of new HVAC units. And this is all scheduled for September of this year.
So with those 3 new bids, the lowest bid was Interstate Roofing, and the quote is attached. I did add the numbers together for the flat portion of the roof with the sloping portion. So that total was the $127,421. You can see the other 2 bids, and the recommended action for this is to approve the resolution 29/2026, authorizing the transfer of the $32,500 of appropriations in the facilities fund contingency to capital outlay.
Okay. Any questions, Counselor Copeland?
These are more from my own curiosity, but 2 questions.
Okay.
What's going on with ABC Roofing?
I had that question too.
They obviously do not want to put this roof on.
Well, that's what I thought too, but they did follow up with me, so I'm not sure. It's a very high number.
Are they using gold?
And then, again, just out of curiosity, so the original bid, you said was underbid. Why did they leave something off of it or something?
No, absolutely not. It was, every interaction with them up until the signing of the contract was valid. I mean, their bid was equivalent of the other bids that we received. So it would, just in comparison, so theirs was the 98,500. I also collected a bid from Gresham Roofing, which was right around 131. And then, so if you look at the other numbers, like everybody's in line between the 127 to 147, except for the original one, and then the ABC Roofing.
Weird.
I know.
The original one must have talked to ABC Roofing, and they were like, dude, you like way underbid that, go for more.
It's okay, I'd rather have somebody solid and that's what they're doing, and
Yeah.
That's all I got, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
I do.
Nope, Keith's going.
Mayor Keith.
Thank you. Please forgive me, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but as I recall going through the material, the number that you're asking for is considerably higher than the bid. I am assuming that is to cover all unknown contingencies, just making sure that we have enough prepared for this. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the difference is to cover the higher bid, but it also includes the example of, pulling off the tiles and if there's dry rot and all that.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, would entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 29-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Always get a little excited when we get to talk about the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission. The next item on the agenda is authorize the city manager execute an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Portland for Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission for grant administration services. It's resolution 28-2026, and Nathan.
Thank you, President Owen. Just a quick little history on this. This was a proposal from Portland to administer the remaining 3 years of grants from the past. And they put together an agreement between all the jurisdictions, including all the cities, including Portland and including Multnomah County. And the original proposal was to actually have us paid directly. The second proposal of the city's pushback was to have it just paid out of that money that they already have. So I brought this before you, and the council chose to get that request for more information, which I got, and it's in your council packet. But essentially, unbeknownst to me, the MHCRC board met in June, and they anticipated that maybe this agreement wouldn't actually get signed. So they set aside money that would be given to Portland from the board to cover all these costs. So I did some checking. Troutdale, Wood Village, and the county all signed it. Gresham has not signed it, and though they didn't say it, I got the impression they will not be signing it. And so my recommendation actually is to not sign it and move forward in that way, because it's already been put in place. We don't need to sign it, and we'll save money. because the money they allocated actually for the city of Portland to do the work is less than the money that they contract out.
Okay.
That is my short story.
Thanks for checking into that. I'm sorry, out of order.
Go ahead.
Thank you for checking into that, and that's kind of what I was thinking. What I'm concerned about, but I don't think there's anything we can do, is there's that PEG money that's sitting out there that Ann has so nicely decided that we're going to get 250,000 of it.
That's what they told us.
Yeah, well, now expect that to be 240 or 230 because we've set aside that money that Portland, all this to write 30 checks. So, but I agree. I don't think we need to do anything, especially if Gresham's, not doing anything, fine.
Yeah, the only action I would request is the council formally say that you're not gonna approve it. That would be helpful. If we could do that, that would be our city recorder. But
make a motion to approve it and then no one approves it. Okay.
yeah.
Make a motion to not.
To not approve.
I mean, no action means that it
Right.
didn't go anywhere, but if you want on a record that you're.
So make a motion not to
Not approving it.
and vote. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion to not approve 282026.
Second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? None, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you, council.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is to consider the removal of a citizen member from their advisory committee appointment. And Mayor Keith has your name on it.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, Council President. And Council, I hope my cell signal continues through this as we're traveling south. I would like to bring up a testimony that was mentioned earlier from Ms. Santoro. I personally do not question her passion for volunteering with the city, to jump in and volunteer. However, in my opinion, I think anybody that is representing the city, whether it be through an advisory committee or even on council, is held to a different standard, a little bit higher than the public. And there's been a few instances as of late. Attorney, I will list a few, but not in an entire listing here. But at the recent Fairview Summerfest, upon entering the event, Ms. Santoro was greeted by a seasonal employee from Play East. And when that employee was trying to guide her to where she would be, she just rudely cut him off and said, "No, thanks, I don't need you. I know where I'm going." Okay, that in and of itself, while short, probably was an indicator. I did speak to another committee member after the event, and I heard asked how the event went. For the most part, went well. However, this other committee member did mention that during the event, the committee table did have a activity for kids. Keep in mind, this is a free event and a free activity. And Ms. Santoro seemed to be more consumed by enforcing rules or procedures rather than allowing children to be children. I asked what types of situations. The two that were mentioned to me at the time were either young children or possibly developmentally disabled children. To me, that is not acceptable. I recall in the past being asked to judge chalk the walk. And if I came across similar situations, the expectation is to praise. The expectation is to celebrate, not enforce anything. At a recent advisory committee, when Ms. Santoro was asked, when she was talking during the committee meeting, she mentioned that she does not represent the city of Fairview, only the Parks Committee. When reminded that the Parks Committee is a portion of the city of Fairview, she did mention that she is her own person and proceeded to use some pronouns as a example of how she is her own person. Now, myself, I am of an age that pronouns are not my highest priority, but I do recognize that there's a significant portion of our population that pronouns are a very important part of their life. It is their identifier. It is something that is very valuable to them. And what was said in this meeting can very easily be construed as mocking of pronouns, which is not acceptable. One other event that I can think of is at the Kids Free Fishing event. Now I'm under the impression that Multnomah County Sheriff's was asked to be there at the free fishing event. When a MCSO deputy showed up, that deputy was greeted with some mild vitriol. Why are you here? Very loud tone. You don't need to be scaring people. When then Chief Hemsworth showed up later, he received a very similar earful. This to me is disrespectful to our law enforcement. It's disrespectful to leadership. But at this time, these are council-appointed committees, and I'm just placing this in front of council to see if this construes a case of removing somebody, namely Marsh Santoro, from any city advisory committees. And I will leave the floor to Council President.
Thank you, Mayor Keith. At this time, just council, I would like to just read a couple messages that I received today. I asked Devery to print these off, and you all have a copy of these in front of you. But since Councilor Marker was not able to be here this evening, he sent me a short message earlier today. It just said, my statement concerning Marsh Santoro, she has always done what I have asked. I additionally spoke with Chair Dolphin concerning her. Received another message today from the chair of the Parks Committee, Bob Dolphin. He sent me a message that, Steve, I just got off the phone with Councilman Marker and wanted to offer my opinion on Marsh. While she is often not tactful and can speak before she thinks, she has good intentions. She gets things done for PrAC, demonstrated by her being Volunteer of the Year recently. If she has done something wrong to irritate the city council, then she should have this explained to her and an opportunity for improvement before being suddenly removed from the committee. So these were two messages that I received today. I just wanted to share it with everyone. And that is the information that I had. So really the consideration here for council this evening is to decide if the council, since it's the council's responsibility or has the responsibility to meet and if we're going to remove someone. So I'm just kind of open it up to the floor here. If someone would like to start, and we'll go with Councilor Weber.
Yeah, I just wanted to read a few things that are in our charter regarding commissions and committees. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact reference, but I can find it if needed. But it does state in there, commission, committee, task force, or other advisory group members shall conduct themselves so as to bring credit upon the government of the city by respecting the rule of law, ensuring non-discriminatory performance of public service, being informed concerning the matters of the commission, committee, task force, or other advisory groups' considerations, and abiding by all decisions of the council, whether or not the member agrees with the prevailing side. Under nature and general conduct of meetings, it also says no person in attendance shall be disorderly, abusive, or disruptive of the orderly conduct of the meeting, and any person may be removed from the meeting for such conduct. Under section B, it does say there shall be no audience demonstrations, maybe this doesn't apply, but such as applause, cheering, display of signs, or other conduct disruptive of the meeting. I just feel that this is not an isolated incident. This has been going on for a while. There were issues on PSAC as well. So yeah, I just think if somebody's going to be representing the city, we need somebody who's going to represent the city in a positive manner.
Okay, Councilor Dennerlein.
I completely agree with what Councilor Weber said. We've spent far too much time on this. It's been going on for far too long.
Yep.
That's my opinion. if we had a fault, it was probably that we didn't address this a year ago. And we kind of, I don't know. But at this point, I think we've spent far too much time. I know which way I'm thinking on this, so.
Anything, Councilor Copeland?
I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I don't feel like I have enough involvement in any of these situations to speak of it.
Yeah. Well, and from my position, I actually attended a Parks meeting, my first one in a long, long time. And what I can say is that during the meeting, there was a lot of conversation, and in the particular meeting I was in, there was a lot of repeating the same thing. So, I'm sure, topics kind of come top of mind and you get a little excited and hot, or you're passionate about it. So my takeaway from the meeting is that there was a lot said, but there was a lot of the same thing said, kind of over and over and over again, which really kind of loses its meaning after a while. And I guess after listening to Mayor Keith give some more information as it relates to the festival that we had, I was not aware of that information, so that's new information to me. And have heard about the instance with the county sheriff. At this point, I would support the removal based on what we have in front of us this evening as far as the agenda item. So if there's no further discussion, I'd just be looking for a motion.
Motion, I lost the thing.
It's actually not it's just a motion.
Yeah, it's not a resolution.
Yeah,
it's just
okay.
a motion.
Well, I move to remove Marsh Santoro from the the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee.
Second.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I was gonna say, Councilor Copeland, you do have to vote per your council rules.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, so motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the municipal court briefing. Ann Baker, just as a heads up, I do have a speaker request form on this after the presentation from Eric Mueller.
Good evening, President Owen, Mayor Kudrna, and council. While she's getting my slide deck up, council has had some questions in previous meetings, how the city was being charged through the IGA with the city of Troutdale regarding our court services. Every July, we get a summary of the court operations from the finance director of Troutdale, Eric Mueller. We just received our recent one, so I thought this might be a good time to bring that forward to you, just to show you everything, the revenue we receive, the expenses that we incur with through this IGA.
I just want to make sure that's working for you.
Yes, thank you. So the total cost of Troutdale providing us our court services was almost $129,000 for the 25-26 fiscal year. And we took in almost $101,000 in our fines, fees, and assessments for the city. That left a shortfall for the fiscal year of about $28,000. So we are only recovering the court about 78% of our costs through the tickets that we issued. Some papers here. So there are a couple different costs that we get through this IGA, and one of them is a shared regional court. These costs are the costs of the building, the staff, everything that can't be attributed directly to the city of Fairview's costs for processing the citations. That total then is divided by the number of citations that are issued through the year. And a cost per citation has come up with that, and it was for the fiscal year 25-26 is $126.25 per citation. Now, if you look at the citations that were issued, you can see that the city of Fairview accounts for almost 50% of all the citations that were issued, 45%. So you take the 879 citations, multiply that by the $126, and you get what is called the shared costs. So our shared costs were $110,900 for the fiscal year. And then the second part of the costs for us in that IGA are the direct costs. And that is the court-appointed attorneys that are associated with those 800 and some citations. So that gives us our $128,878 in costs. So this one, we look at it then, the $128,000 in costs and then the revenue collected leaves us with the loss of the $28,000. Our cost recovery through this is only 78.2%. That is the gist of.
Okay. I'm speechless.
I thought this was gonna be a short meeting. What in the? Do we want to hear from Eric first to see if he can add to anything before we start?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Yeah, let's have
As he's coming up here, this is a lot like allocating out internal service charges. Troutdale does have their costs to maintain their court, the offices, they have the staff that does that. That's all the shared part. And then the public defenders are directly attributable to prosecuting the citations that go into court. So I don't find any fault in the way that this contract is done. It's allocating, I think, the shared costs fairly based on the number of citations that are going through the court.
What are these citations entail? Why are they so much higher than Troutdale?
It's.
Because you're a code enforcer now?
Oh, I've never.
Let's, Eric, why don't you go ahead, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Eric Mueller, Fairview resident, but wearing my day job hat of finance director in Troutdale. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Every year this reconciliation prompts questions and so forth, so I thought when I saw it on the agenda that it would be appropriate for me to try and pull some information to be able to come up and support whatever explanation. The history of the IGA goes back to our previous city manager, who was for decades the municipal court judge in Troutdale, and I believe for a number of years also served in the Fairview municipal court judge position. When he was city manager, he was approached by the then Fairview resident and then city manager of Wood Village, Bill Peterson, about whether they could redirect their court activity to the Troutdale Court rather than Multnomah County. Wood Village's motivation was primarily because they could not get the county to be able to take action on anything that was code enforcement related. They weren't able to address any livability issues. They would go through their whole process, but could never do any enforcement because, of course, the DA's office is underfunded. They're not going to spend time on something that isn't even a misdemeanor, you know. So that was what originally generated the interest for this IGA. Wood Village entered into an IGA that's, other than I think the city names, it's almost identical to the IGA that Fairview then came on with a year or two later. And my understanding at that point in time, Fairview Court had a halftime clerk. DeVry is, of course, far more familiar with those details than I am. But then it was, Nolan was the city administrator at that point, and he felt as though, I believe, that there was a way to save the city of Fairview some money and potentially redirect that FTE resource to do other activities rather than operating the court. And so the Fairview IGA was essentially added on. From the finance director's standpoint, which I had this argument with my former boss multiple times, municipal courts are not a positive revenue contributor. They are a net cost, and they're a public service, shall we say, a function unless you happen to have a red light camera, which can generate considerable revenue. Municipal court costs, or municipal courts tend to cost you money rather than, quote, make you a profit. The IGAs, the proceeds for the fines, the terminology is written based on municipal court judges' optimistic view of the world, shall we say, and that the proceeds from fines collected by Troutdale for the prosecution of cases will be retained and divided equally between the two municipalities after the court payments of all statutory fines and assessments. Well, I will, of course, hope that no city, Troutdale city councilors are watching, but I will tell you that that's not what we're doing, because that loss that was on the screen would be that much higher. We're not splitting the revenue 50-50. Because as I had gone through the first couple of years of reconciliation with Ray on it, it was clear that this was overly optimistic and didn't line up with the facts. But ultimately, the intent of the IGAs was to be part of the three cities' good neighbor, cooperative, work together kind of operation, and that, you know, if we could recover essentially the view was if we could recover our incremental costs for doing additional jurisdiction work, that it was something we would want to do as a quote good neighbor. So again, not to downplay my reputation of potentially wanting $251 a quarter for other IGAs, we don't actually allocate all the costs. That I could make the costs look much worse. None of my time goes into it. There's data entry work that's done by a staff member that isn't captured in it. We don't capture any space costs, even though that is specifically mentioned in the IGA. We essentially are trying to operate it in the most, shall we say, cost-effective manner for our two partner or customer cities of Fairview and Village. But the net problem is with the, and again, Deborah can correct me here, knows it far better than I do, but the way the state statutes are, there's basically a range for a citation of what the fines can be, and the judge has to do something within that range. Well, there's also about 45% of the costs end up being passed through to the state, through the state judicial surcharges. And So, you can decide that, well, we need more money, but the judge can't, he has to stay within those statutes. So it's problematic, shall we say, to generate sufficient revenue to cover the cost. But again, the whole reason of having a municipal court in Troutdale has been, quote, to service our public rather than them having to go downtown Portland to go deal with a traffic ticket, et cetera. That's always kind of been the philosophy on it. I was able to dig up something from April of 2021 when Nolan was addressing changing this over, and it recapped back when there was the red light camera days. There was a net gain of 79,000 the last year that it was operating, and then that dropped to $26,000 gain on down to 14,000. By the fourth year, it was running at a net loss. And so, I don't think that the Troutdale court is necessarily any more cost inefficient than maybe the cost that it would be to run your own court. Certainly not the official position of the Troutdale City Council or even the official position of my boss, the city manager. But as the finance director, I would be delighted if the city of Fairview decided to restart their own municipal court. And I know that the court staff in Troutdale would be delighted for me to give them that update. They would love to have less work to do. But I don't think economically that from a small region, that it's probably the best approach from a taxpayer standpoint, because there is, I believe, some efficiencies. So anyway, that's well over my 3-minute limit on the comment, so I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so we're looking at the revenue for this last fiscal year covered approximately 80% of costs. And so I pulled up Eric's report from the previous fiscal year, and while the revenue for the previous fiscal year was almost 101,000, we had contracted prosecutor costs of a little over 8,000, and the citations were 1,125, which is again about 44.8% of the total citations that Troutdale processed. So it's comparable, although it's more, it's still comparable to the overall costs. The shared costs were $96,109. So a little bit less than the $110,900 that we paid this year. The cost per citation that allocated those shared costs was $85.43. But because our citation amount increased, that 100,000 still only covered about 81% of the costs of running the court. So citations increase, revenues increase. We had, contracted prosecutor, and the shared costs were decreased. It still amounted to just 81% being covered. And like Eric said, that if we were to start our own court up again, our loss that the general fund would have to subsidize for this would be more than the 28,000.
Sure.
So.
Thank you. It's been very informational. Hearing, it's very informational for us. There's really, in my opinion, nothing for us to do. I don't know whether to take it and write more citations or less citations, so we're having to save more money. Councilor Bennerlein.
So, I do have a few questions. First off, what are we talking about here? We're talking about traffic citations, we're talking about code violations, we're not doing murder stuff out here. What exactly is this court hearing?
Primarily it's going to be, moving violations. There's some parking I understand this structure, and correct me if I get it wrong, Deborah, that you have a case, and a case can have more than one citation. You know, you're pulled over and you're cited for speeding.
But this is generally just traffic court.
Primarily. There is, you know, DUIs, which is probably the more serious pieces of it, but.
And so we just have like 5 times as many bad drivers in Fairview as we, or cited drivers in Fairview as we do in Troutdale, because you had a graph there that was like, Fairview's over here, everybody else is down here.
Yeah.
We just have crappy, or we have drivers that are getting pulled over more often.
Well, you have I believe, a deputy that is conscientious in ensuring that the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office is delivering full traffic enforcement services.
I was complaining about people blowing stop signs in the village. I'm costing us money.
So we have been asking the Sheriff's Department for the city of Fairview to pay special attention to stop signs in the village and extend special attention to certain things within Fairview, because they've been becoming a bigger and bigger problem. So I would guess that that's a good part of the increase. I did not pull the prior year's report to see what that looked like the year prior to me coming here, but.
Well, it sounds like.
Add one note too from the sidelines. As I understand it previous, when we had our own court, it was only traffic court. And everything else went to the county. So all the misdemeanors that you're seeing with these court-appointed attorneys, et cetera, those are things that didn't used to be part of Fairview's court system. And that changed when we became part of the Troutdale system. Whereas Troutdale did always have that previously.
Well, it sounds like maybe we need to huddle at some point, but not in a meeting where there's a quorum.
Or have a work session.
Exactly. That might be worth talking about. I see that I've got an admin light up here. Is that you, Nathan?
That's me.
Please, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I'll be happy to put that down if you want. I think most of it's in cover, but just really quickly, and if I missed it, I apologize. This council market requests this information. So that's why Ann put together a report. I did want to state that as far as the sheriff's office, one of the concerns I've had and many residents have had and counselors, everyone's staff, is the issue with our stop signs and our enforcement. So I specifically talked to our chief about that. He's done really good to put people out doing missions to do that. And I want you to know that they're not charging us extra for doing that. So we're not paying for the police work.
But every time we do a ticket, it actually winds up costing us more to collect on the ticket than it does to be better to let them run the stop sign because it doesn't cost us so much.
Right, the question is safety, right? I mean, like jails are expensive, but.
Yeah, but we have.
Right, I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't do it, I'm just saying that the whole reason is the safety, so but that's all I wanted to say, thank you.
Okay.
In the history of my working, Albany, the city of Albany has their own court. The city of Florence had their own court. And in both cities, it costs the general fund to run the court. In Florence, we had the court because we didn't want our citizens to have to drive to Eugene to do it. A lot of them couldn't afford to take the time off of work. So it's a service that you don't expect to even break even, so.
Okay, thank you. Let me just check in with Mayor Keith. Do you have anything, or are you good? He's good. The only thing something I can note is I keep glancing over at Keith periodically, and that background looks like one of those movie sets or something, because it looks like it's just kind of jungling in the back there.
There's guys rocking the car.
I'm not sure if he's not just driving around Fairview, Wood Village, and Troutdale.
Does that look like Fairview, Wood Village, Troutdale right there?
Sure. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the city manager report.
Thank you, President Owen. Abbreviated report today. I wanted to first cover, actually, I really don't have a whole lot to report unless you have any questions. And I figured unless you have questions on our department heads, we don't really have a whole lot to report on. just a reminder that we did cancel the next meeting because of various absences, so.
Just forewarn, the meeting after that with us is usually nuts.
That's okay. Appreciate it. Well, it'll be after holidays. I wanted to bring to your attention, and the reason I didn't get this in the packet is because it really came to a head this week, just within a few days. If you recall, I did send out on I think it was about 3 weeks ago, I sent a link to one of my reports about the ambulance plan. I did not give a lot of information, I just simply put the link out. That was just intentional because I didn't feel like we really had a lot of discussion at the time. But more importantly, the county has released their ambulance service plan, and there's a lot of concerns that I think the cities, I would have, and our city has, I would think have, my opinion of it. One of those, probably the biggest one, is that they have reclassifying it as suburban, and with response times, I think somewhere around 15 minutes. So this actually came from a Wood Village mayor who, and I also received it from his staff as well, to put together a letter from the 4 cities, including Gresham, to oppose this. And this is basically what this letter is. I haven't read it in detail. I've reviewed it briefly, just haven't had time today. But it's not really a formal request, but I wanted to get the council's take on that. I had checked with the mayor today because he'd be the one signing it, and he thought it was appropriate to bring before you as well. So it's basically just and a couple other things too. What we understand is they have a public hearing come up potentially on August 11th at a work session. I actually emailed the medical director who presented this to the county commissioners back in, I think, March sometime. He didn't present the actual plan, he presented we were doing, the plan came out in June. And it was July, I don't know. It wasn't that long ago. And I also emailed the manager over the ambulance services and asked them when the next work session was. And all I got was a response that we can submit request or we can submit testimony through an email. And I got that email address. And I'll put that in my normal weekly update, but they did not give me anything regarding dates. So I thought that was interesting. But, so anyway, this is a letter that I believe Wood Village has crafted, which I think is a good letter for everything I've read so far. I just wanted to get the council's take on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
That is all I have. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is citizen comment, items not on the agenda this evening. Any citizen comments? I see none. And so the next motion would be.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye to adjourn. Keith?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Drive safe.
Oh, yeah.